Jaden, you must have seen this Humane AI pin demo by now. Either the TED Talk that came out a while ago or the new demo that's gotten, I put it on LinkedIn. Jaden, it's already at 100,000 impressions. People are like, what is this, Star Trek? Some people are loving it. Some people are like, what is this, a pager with Siri? I'm like, all right, dude. But point being, whatever you think of the Humane AI pin, it's just launched and it is going to change the way we look at devices. Some people are calling it an iPhone killer. I think that's probably taking it a little too far. But the whole point is that this now exists, and this has set the new bar. This has set the table for what the future of tech looks like. So you've seen this thing. Your first impression was what?
My first impression was cool because they were demoing a bunch of capabilities that a lot of people weren't doing before. Now, most of the capabilities that they have demoed in the device you could get API access to as of a few days ago. OpenAI is doing like a lot of them. Not to say it's not cool. Here's what I'll say. Here's my credit that I'm going to give to Humane is, anytime you create a device, a new category and a new device, and people say they would actually use it, like, massive kudos. That is not an easy thing to do. And I think Humane has done this masterfully. Like, I shared it on LinkedIn as well. I know you shared it. And people in the comments are like, take my money. This is amazing. Like, where do I buy one? And I think, like, that is so rare for a piece of hardware, a brand new category and brand new piece of hardware, that a device like this didn't come out of Apple. I mean, that's not too shocking. But, maybe Apple will do it if it gets traction with this device, right? Kind of like the watch after the Pebble launched and got $10 million on Kickstarter. Then Apple did the Apple Watch. But I think, I got to give them massive kudos for creating a whole new category and for getting such positive feedback on the category.
Yeah, no question, right? Because, I mean, it's sort of like, if you can imagine like Michael Jordan retiring or Tom Hanks retiring. These are very American-centric examples, but just the greatest, Messi retiring, and everybody be like, well, what's next? That is the iPhone. Like, anybody sort of and by the way, Humane is making no sort of claim to replace the iPhone. They're just saying they're doing something very different. But you're absolutely right, Jaden. Anytime you can get a lot of people looking at something that is kind of weird. Right now, it's a beautiful little device that hangs on you, but it is different. It has no apps, no screen, anything like that. And people are like, yeah, I want to use this. That is not usually how technology works in terms of adoption. Usually it's like, but this stupid iPhone has no keyboard. Like, what is this thing? I don't want something like that. So let's just sort of talk through some of the things that this has, right? So, like, first of all, it's the price point is about $700. I think you can pre-order it. I think it's around November 16th, if I have that right. You wear it like a pin. I'm still trying to figure that out. People are like, well, will the magnet hold? I'm like, they've probably figured out the magnet. You know what I mean? Like, this is like
very freaking strong magnets.
This is like they have a magnet person that's just about this. But the things that were really grabbing me just in terms of sheer practicality, and this is a little what we talk about sometimes with ChatGPT, which is if it could do everything, people get confused. You want a tight interface. So the moments that like put my jaw on the floor around this, in no particular order, one is like translation, right? It does really live translation. Now, I have to do this sometimes with people, and I'll put it into Google Translate and then translate it over here, whatever. This is just clean. You're like, hey, let's see if this guy wants to do this. And it literally speaks it out in Portuguese or whatever. So that's phenomenal without touching. Obviously, the voice enabled, the laser on your hand thing, and then moving your hand, all that kind of stuff. That's very cool. But also, there's certain drawbacks to me, right? So, like, one of the really cool things is it takes video, it takes photos and things like that. I think that's awesome because their whole premise is stay in the moment. You're not gonna take out your phone. But I guess one of the things, and I want you to reflect back on some of this stuff, is, with a photo, photos is almost like the primary use of an iPhone, right? And people take 5. Why? Because they keep looking at it. They looking at it. Like, if you can't see it right away, it almost feels like old school when you used to bring in your film to an old place and then you'd wait a week. Anyway, when I throw those things out at you, what are the things that grab you? What are the things that you're like, I'm not sure?
Well, okay, so I think it's a cool device. If you've seen it, my thinking is like, hey, it's a little fat. Okay, so here's the thing. If people are going to adopt a new device, it has to do one thing, and that is make them look cooler, increase their perceived status, make them, it can't make them look dumb. It can't make them look dorky or dumb, or it won't work. You see this with Google Glass. Google Glass failed because you looked like a freaking cyborg. It didn't look normal. It was just weird. Now, I think Meta has learned a lot from that. They came out with their Ray-Ban collaboration glasses that look just like regular glasses, and they can do a bunch of cool things. And I think that's in the right direction. If it just looks like a pair of Ray-Bans, people will wear them, and then it's like, oh, it's like Ray-Bans with like cool tech in it. And I think if Humane wants to be successful, they're gonna have to do the same thing with the pin, where it's like the pin can't look dumb as this big thing attached to your shirt. I mean, I've seen it attached to like jackets. That's a little bit easier, but like it can't be too heavy that it's gonna like make my shirt look weird and like kind of sag, or like it's got to be cool. So if they can get that right, and I think over time, of course, the device will get thinner and flatter, and I think that will help with that in that regard. So in that regard, I think it's got a lot of potential. The one thing that I'm like slightly concerned about is, of course, everyone knows we all used to have the little Bluetooth ear thing, and that died partly because I think it kind of looks dumb, and also maybe because when you're walking around outside talking out loud to yourself, you look crazy. So like you don't want to look like the crazy guy talking out loud, even though I know people thought it made him look cool, whatever. So those things died. That's yeah. And so I'm just would worry Humane if they don't make it look good and cool and increase your status, they could have the same fate. But I think they'll be able to avoid that.
No, I totally agree. I mean, listen, the device itself is absolutely gorgeous, right? I mean, like super sleek, very iPhone-esque kind of thing. It's super. I thought the same thing. I saw it on somebody's T-shirt, and it kind of sagged the T-shirt a little bit. I know that sounds like dumb. It's like, oh, what a nitpicking. But Jaden, you hit exactly the right, like status. Like why, I mean, my colleague Scott Galloway at NYU Stern talks about like Apple as being a luxury product, not as a tech product, right? Because if you have that, it indicates that you probably have a little bit more money to spend on it, all that kind of stuff, right? And that increases our status as humans, and that's what we care about. So it is really the most normal thing in the world to think, well, how does this going to make us feel as humans? And so, maybe sort of when I was thinking about it, I would probably like wear it like in my, on my jeans pocket or something like that, somewhere where it just kind of like, looks sort of a little stronger, like the jacket looks a little stronger, all that kind of stuff. But I guess kind of like when I'm thinking about it, I'm just wondering, like, how are people going? It's going to be a huge. This is why I think they went to the Paris Fashion Show very, super, super intentionally, right? They're like, this is a fashion product, and I think you're right. I think there's going to be sort of like a whole thing around, accessories around that to make it look awesome. Just like everybody has an iPhone case, and then pop sockets and all that kind of stuff will come out. So I'm guessing a whole industry will build up around that. But just in terms of the tech and everything else. People are like, well, we need an app and you need this. I don't know. I think that people are sort of discounting the idea of how much friction goes away when you just have your voice and you just can talk to this thing. Now, people might say, oh, well, that's crazy. But I see people talking on speakerphone all the time with their phone next to their face. People are not worried about having that conversation out loud. So when you think about like reducing the friction, where does your head go on that?
Yeah, I think that's where Humane wins. Humane wins if they can find the pain points to reduce friction, because when I pull out my iPhone, I absolutely hate being like, ding, ding, like, where the frig is that app? And then like go into the app and then go do the thing. Like, that's so annoying. And I'm like definitely someone that's in the target audience of like, when I send a message to anyone, I don't even want to type it. I don't want to touch my freaking keyboard. I just want to click the microphone and just like talk it. I talk all my texts. I know people like hate those people, whatever. But the typos are like hilarious. But like that's just the way I do it. I text to everything if I can help it. I don't want to push buttons. I don't want to go down the branch of like an app and all of the different settings and places to find the right thing, right? And I think that's the friction that they're eliminating. If you can tap a button on a physical device, you tap a button on the top of it, and all of a sudden it knows exactly what to do. You tell it what to do, and it executes that. Like, so much less friction. And if you can decrease friction, I think you'll be successful.
Yeah, 100%. I also wonder if this is like that kind of BlackBerry keyboard moment where people are like, well, why wouldn't they want a keyboard? Of course, everybody's going to want a keyboard. And people just kind of get used to it. And then once you get used to that, over that friction point, and then all of a sudden people are like, wow, this is like way, way easier. So will it end up like, Humane will look like that? Probably not. The original iPhone looks kind of like the original iPhone or the iPhone today, but it is a little different. Yeah, I think that sort of anytime somebody takes a big swing and you have people being like, that's cool, that's huge, because it is human nature to be like, that's stupid. You know what I mean? And then everybody feels like they have to say, that's stupid too. And I guess that's where sort of like, the other just topic I wanted to ask you about today, Jaden, sort of is on that hardware thing, because this Samsung Gauss has come out. I don't know if you kind of like heard about this, but when you think about like Samsung is going to be probably the first, hardware, even beating out Apple and iPhone, to introduce generative AI into locally into their product. And Samsung, here in the U.S., like maybe not tons of people have Samsung. It's more some kind of iPhone or whatever it is. Samsung has a huge market share, right? I mean, like it's like 20% to Apple's like 20.
Tell us about what the product is.
Yeah, so the product itself is one of these things. I'm just like sort of looking at the notes, right? So they want to sort of make this where it's going to like run locally on these things. It's going to like enhance, efficiency, enable smarter device control, allow for personalized experience integrated into the Samsung's ecosystem. So like it'll work for your TVs or anything else that you do. So here's what sort of like the basis of it is, right? It's like language, code, and image, right? So it has these 3 core models that are going to integrate all together. Let's see. So Samsung language, this generative model will enhance work efficiency by facilitating tasks such as emails, documents, content. You can imagine. Code, the code generation tools use in-house software development, allowing faster development as well as blah, blah, blah. That's maybe something that's not going to be as consumer focused, but it's going to be on there. And then the image.
So is it like a competitor to ChatGPT, or are they just saying we have these capabilities and we're building them into our phones and stuff?
That's a good question. I don't know if it's going to be a competitor because I don't think they ever think that they're going to catch up with like what OpenAI does, just sort of like out in the cloud. But what they're trying to do, and the real big thing that they're trying to do, is how do you get this to run locally on your hardware? That sort of helps with speed. It helps with privacy. It helps with kind of all that huge stuff that OpenAI, I know, this can't touch right now with the size of their models. It all has to work in the cloud. So Samsung is making this play where they're like, this is going to be an AI first, device like this. And because, believe it or not, nobody else is having this on their device. It all goes to the cloud. So if they can run this model on their phone, that is the only thing I can imagine, sort of that leapfrogging iPhone. If it's good enough, then I think that could be phenomenal, just because otherwise, of course, people are using ChatGPT and everything else. It's almost like sort of how we were talking about Grok a while back, where it's maybe not as powerful a model, but to have that model built into what your eyes are on every single day and 50 times a day, that could be a real game changer.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. I think Samsung definitely has a shot, and I'm always for more players in the market. So I'm definitely excited to see where that goes. Listen, this has been a fascinating topic. To the listener, thank you so much for tuning in to the AI Applied podcast. Make sure to rate us wherever you get your podcasts, and I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.